All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, April 22nd. We have a full MLB slate to dive into in today's video, like we always do. I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to all of my final plays. So what I'm actually rolling with myself, if that does interest you, it's absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3, 4 more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. In terms of how we did on Monday, let's pump in some crowd noise. A 5-0 sweep, calling for the money gun. Let's go. A 5-0 sweep. We had the Yankees team total over. Kind of had to sweat that one out, but it comes through and cashes. Nolan Jones in that exact same game, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. He was playing so poorly, they pinch hit for him. Then we had the Reds, Marlins first 500. Got a little sweaty, but still came through. Jaime Candelario did not end up playing. Padres team total over cashes. And then the Blue Jays and the Astros. One more cha-ching there. You know what? Pumping some more crowd noise. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button to celebrate the 5-0 sweep. But you know what? That was yesterday. We can't just brag about yesterday forever. We have a full slate to dive into today. Again, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get going with game number 1 here. We got Cleveland taking on the Yankees here. Tanner Bybee on the bump for Cleveland, going up against Will Warren for the Yankees. Will Warren has kind of looked decent, I guess you can say. I mean, on the season, he's boasting an over 5.17 ERA, but some of his other numbers don't look too bad. He's forcing a lot of ground balls. He has an average against on the season of 224. Now, he's kind of struggled on the road. Throw in the fact that he only has, I think it's like 2 road starts out of his 4, so 50-50, but he is on the road here. I guess it's worth noting, right? And then also his K rate's pretty damn good at nearly 25%, so he has some good numbers. I don't know if this is like the best matchup for him, but at the same time, Cleveland's offense, I still don't believe in, yet they're just making a fool out of me, right? Like yesterday, they put up 6 runs in that one. They win 6-4 was the final, but they were winning 6? Was it 6-0 at one point? It might have been. And then it was 6-2, or maybe it was 5-0, 5-2, something like that. Ultimately, Tanner Bybee, I do think, has struggled to start the season, but he's probably a better pitcher than Will Warren, at least in my opinion. I think he has some decent stuff. And looking at him this year, he's gone 0 earned runs through 5 2/3 in his first start, right? Then he goes up against the Angels and he pitches only 4 innings, allows 7 earned runs. Then he goes up against Kansas City. He goes 4 2/3, 0 earned runs. Then the next time out, which is his most recent start, he goes 6 earned through 5 2/3. So he is going good start, terrible start, good start, terrible start. He is coming off a terrible start, so maybe you could make the argument good start is, coming his way here. He does have fine numbers against this Yankees current roster. Small sample size, though, just 23 plate appearances, 30.4% K rate, 0% walk rate, expected batting average against of 193, expected WOBA 242. So those are pretty good, but again, pretty damn small sample size, and he throws a lot of the cutter and the fastball. Those are things New York hits pretty well. I do think I'm going to lean towards the Yankees today, but it was kind of tough for me. I do think that there's a pitching advantage and even, I guess you could say a bullpen advantage in terms of Cleveland, but Cleveland's bullpen's pretty damn taxed. I would say they are a better bullpen, but still, them being taxed is kind of tough. So I'm going to lean Yankees. I don't know if we get there with a final play in this one because I do think Bybee is due again for a decent start because literally he's been trending 0 earned runs, a bunch of earned runs, 0 earned runs, a bunch of earned runs. Last time out, a bunch of earned runs. In terms of a total, I will lean towards the over. Why not, right? I think that the Yankees can hit the fastball and cutter, which is what we're going to see from Bybee, and then throw in the fact that, Will Warren's on the mound, and I do think that he's been good, but there are some parts of me that are thinking that Cleveland should be able to hit him. He's going to throw a lot of the fastball. Okay, they hit the fastball well. He's going to throw a lot of sliders and sinkers. They hit the slider and sinker very well as well. So I'm going to lean towards the over 8 in this spot. In terms of weather, no real wind, no real precipitation, in mid-60s. So decent spot for, I guess, what we could say 9 runs coming across. All right, moving on to Miami taking on Cincinnati. We have Edward Cabrera going up against Nick Martinez here. Nick Martinez is a righty, and that's really important to note because Miami has mightily struggled against righties to start the season. They're decent against lefties. We kind of saw that yesterday, but Martinez is a righty. Now, Edward Cabrera hasn't looked all that phenomenal in his first two starts. I think this one's going to come down to the offense for me. Cincinnati, pretty damn good at hitting righties. Miami, not very good at hitting righties. This is an 8.5 total. I'm going to lean towards Cincinnati or Cincinnati's team total over. There's only two guys in the lineup. Now, one of them being McLean, but Jaime Candelario and Spencer Steer are the only two in the lineup to start the year with some pretty piss-poor numbers against right-handed bats. Everyone else seems to hit it pretty damn well, and they're going to see a lot of changeups. Okay, they hit the changeup fine. Curveball, they hit it fine. But if they get the fastball and the sinker, I think that we could see a good offensive performance out of Cincinnati today. And let's make note that Miami did win yesterday. I expect these teams to be neck and neck enough that, Miami doesn't pull out two in a row against the Cincinnati squad. Now, if it was a lefty on the mound, I may be thinking differently, but there ain't a lefty on the mound, all right? In terms of where we go from a total, I don't mind the idea of, like I said, Cincinnati team total over, but I don't think I want to include Miami in that. I don't really want to say, okay, full game over, because I could see this being like, hell, a 5-1 game, 5-2 game, where that's a decent amount of runs. Cincinnati did their job, but we don't necessarily see, Miami, even if it's a 5-3 game, right? It's like, wow, that's a decent amount of runs for these two squads, but we still don't even see it breach that 8.5 number. So I think Cincinnati is the side that I will stick it to in this one in terms of their team total over. Yeah, their offense was absolutely cooking, and they slowed down yesterday, but in yesterday's video, I talked about why. They scored 24 runs the night prior. They were due for a little bit of a setback. Now they can kind of return to norm, which this season, with the 24 run in there as an outlier, they're scoring over 5 runs per game. Prior to that, it was kind of like mid-4s and whatnot, right? So I expect them to kind of get the ball back on the track here. They were scoring 8, 3, a little bit low, but then 8, 7, 5, 24. They came back down to 3. Let's see them bounce back with a nice one. They scored 7 last time they scored 3. In terms of player props here, nothing is really jumping out to me. I was starting to kind of dig in and try and consider some unders for this Miami team because they don't hit lefties well, so under hits, runs, and RBIs and whatnot, but really nothing was jumping out to me. So maybe we'll add some of those in. If we do, I'll throw them with the final plays with an explanation because we didn't talk about it in the video. But as of right now, it's Cincinnati or Cincinnati team total over or nothing in this one. All right, real quick, guys, it is Tuesday, so over on Prize Picks, that means it is Taco Tuesday. If you guys don't know what Taco Tuesday is, I'll talk about it in just a second, but the best deal that Prize Picks is offering is this Play 5, Get $50 instantly. Build a nice little bankroll. What if you do hit that $5 entry? You get that payout as well, and boom, you got even more of a bankroll over in Prize Picks. If you like players and player props, Prize Picks is a great spot for you. And like I said, it is Tuesday, meaning it's Taco Tuesday. They discount squares multiple times throughout the day. They'll do it in basketball and baseball. They mix up the sports so that we, as the people, have better chance of hitting those squares when we put them in our entry. So go ahead and check it out, guys. Again, that link will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment, or just use code GuyBoston. $5, turn it into $50 just by placing that entry as a new customer. Absolute no-brainer. Now let's go ahead and jump back into the rest of these games here. All right, Detroit taking on San Diego. Jack Flaherty on the mound going up against Nick Pivetta. Pivetta's had a really good year so far, and he's been a guy that you can certainly back, right? So he has 4 starts on the season. He has 2 shutout starts, 1 3 earned runs. That was against Chicago, a really good offense. And then he bounces back against Chicago, that very same team, in his last start. It was at home this time. And he goes 6 innings, just 4 hits, 1 earned run, 6 Ks, 1 walk. Jack Flaherty, on the other hand, has also had himself a decent year. He did kind of catch that Milwaukee lineup in a bad spot, or he was in a bad spot against them. I feel like they were just kind of turning a corner. So yeah, he's looked okay, I will say that, but his last start, 5 hits, 3 earned, 4 Ks, 2 walks through 4 2/3. Not exactly his best look, but I almost am willing to somewhat, throw that one out because, again, he's had some decent starts prior to that. Now, if we look at this from an offensive standpoint, I don't think that there's any question in my mind who does have the better offense. Take it with a grain of salt, though, because I've been kind of ragging on this Detroit offense all year long, and it hasn't really looked all that great, right? Like, even yesterday, what they win, 6-4. We had San Diego's team total over, but this is going to be a nice spot, I think, for San Diego, because they're going to see a ton of fastballs and a ton of sliders. 2 pitchers in which they're top 5 this season in terms of runs above average. They have Tatis, Machado, all these guys at the top of the order here looking pretty good. I don't know if we have Arias in the lineup today. I could be wrong, could be right about that, but we'll keep an eye on the final lineup there for San Diego. But either way, I do think that Pivetta is a guy worth backing here. And if we look at these two guys in their careers against the current roster, and what I mean by that is the current players on the roster. So it's not Jack Flaherty against the Padres. It's not Pivetta against the Tigers. It's against the guys that make up those rosters. So we'll start with the home pitcher, Flaherty. 59 plate appearances against, a K rate of 22%, meh, but a walk rate of 18.6. Yikes. An average against of 298, a slugging 456, and an expected WOBA here, 398, an actual WOBA of 426. Not that great of numbers. We flip it over to the Pivetta side of things look a little bit better for him. 57 plate appearances against here, 31.6% K rate, 3.5% walk rate. Already a huge leg up for him, right? Then we have an expected batting average against of 217 and an expected WOBA against of 278. So again, based on the odds we're getting, right? You can get San Diego for even money right now over on FD. I think that they're going to be the side that I look at. This Detroit team has been making a liar out of me this season, though, right? We rode with them one time and it cashed, so we were a truther one time. But the other times I've been like, unless Tariq Skubal's pitching, nothing really interests me. Which is funny to say because I used to back Jack Flaherty last year a ton, right? Before he got moved. So either way, I think this is going to be a spot in which we consider San Diego maybe a team total over. I believe it's going to be a little bit windy there in Detroit, but ultimately no rain or anything like that. So maybe that's a spot we look at. Padres or their team total over. When it comes to player props in this one, it's tough because both these offenses, I can give them the credit. Like I said, I think the Padres are a better offense, but I can give them credit that this is, give the Tigers credit that this is a good offense. I like both pitchers. It's tough to want to really get to some unders, but I have a couple unders that I'm liking here. Colt Keith, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Dingler, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Riley Green, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Those are realistically just matchup-based to Pivetta, facing that arm, the righty, as well as fastballs, and then his curveball as a second pitch. So we haven't fully dug into those. These are what I would call, like sometimes I say, like the starter pack player props that we have because we still want to kind of investigate and do more due diligence on them. But those are the ones that I'm thinking of as of right now. And then again, for a total, San Diego team total over is what I'd look at. All right, next up, Boston taking on Seattle. This is obviously kind of a tough one just due to the pitching. We have Bryce Miller on the mound for Seattle, but Brian Bayo's making his season debut for the Red Sox. Bryce Miller's looked okay in his few or at least we could say he's gotten better and better, right? But that was against Texas and then Cincinnati before the Cincinnati kind of went on like on a little bit of a run here. Brian Bayo, in terms of his starts last year, actually looked okay. He wasn't going deep into games, but we know that he really hasn't panned out, at least as Boston fans here, hasn't really panned out to be like what he's supposed to. When this kid was coming up and they signed him to the big deal at the time, was like, oh, the next Pedro and all that. Now, I do still believe in him. He's still young, and I do think he still has some decent stuff, right? Especially if he can like locate his curve and even not leave his sweeper/slider all over the plate. He's going up against an offense that I would say is probably a good little comeback position. They've scored 5+ in 4 of their last 3 games, and 3 of those 4 were 8, and 11. So this Seattle offense obviously is starting to look okay, right? But I still don't think that they are like a good offense whatsoever. They have a 227 average against righties so far this season. They are walking a decent amount, which has been a little bit of a concern for Bayo in the past. But ultimately, I think you're getting the Red Sox at this minus 130 price tag for a reason, right? Like that just doesn't come out of nowhere. If Bryce Miller's looking better and the Seattle offense is firing on all cylinders and the Red Sox are starting Brian Bayo, who hasn't pitched this season, why are we seeing this at minus 130, right? Or minus 120 right now over on FD? That's what I'm going to trust. I'm going to look at this and say, I think that this is probably a spot which you could back the home team and the Red Sox. Good to see that they ended up, winning that series against the White Sox because some of those games got a little dicey, and taking 3 of 4 against the White Sox is actually a good look. You know what I mean? Like that is fair. I know the White Sox stink, but the Red Sox have not fired on all cylinders yet. So 3 of 4, I would say they did their damn job. Now they're staying at home, whereas Seattle's coming from Toronto. They did have the day off yesterday, but this is a Red Sox spot for me. I'm also going to lean towards the over because what if Seattle's offense continues to get going, right? And Brian Bayo doesn't really pitch all that well, and he has a short pitch count, and then all of a sudden, or pitch limit, and then all of a sudden the bullpen comes in. There are factors that just, I would say there's more ways to get to an over here than an under. And then we did dig into some player props here. Let me pull them up because I don't remember them off the top of my head here. But Let's see, Willier Abreu, Luke Raley, both two guys that I do think could, just because of the odds. Willier Abreu, minus 110 for under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. I don't mind this spot for him, though the kid is good. He's only hit this in 2 of his last 10 games. I really like him, but again, the trend is there. And then Luke Raley, if you've been watching him, he's on a little bit of a slide here. I mean, he's getting his hits, but I also don't think, again, with the Seattle offense, I think returning to earth, even if he gets on, I don't really see him fully coming back, fully coming around to score, which eliminates sort of the runs aspect of hits, runs, and RBIs. So another spot in which I am considering for player props there. I know, guys, a lot of under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs is what we've been doing for like the majority of our player props this season. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? We are seemingly finding these, and I have a little bit of a system that I'll probably share with you guys at some point, that it's like a checklist of if they hit all these criteria, we roll with it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I know we don't like the unders in the comments. I've seen it, but you know what? I think an under is just as fun to watch as an over, especially in baseball. I've said that multiple times in videos. All right, moving on to Washington taking on Baltimore. The first thing I like in this game, speaking of unders, is the first 5 under. Now, I don't think it's going to be all that popular of a look here, and I definitely don't want to go full game under because of the bullpens involved. Even Baltimore's bullpen, like bottom 10 in ERA, bottom 10 in WHIP, K to walk rate, and we know Washington may have the worst bullpen. Honestly, they probably do have the worst bullpen in the league, right? So there are factors as to why we're taking an under, backing the starting pitching, which is Dean Kramer and Mitchell Parker. Mitchell Parker, I do like, and I do think that has some potential here, but ultimately Dean Kramer is going to be the question mark, but I'll show you in the dashboard in just a second a couple things that I'm liking. But again, Mitchell Parker has actually looked pretty damn good this season, so hoping that's the case. He looked pretty good last time he faced Baltimore, which was just a year ago as well. But like I mentioned, let's look at the dashboard, and right after this, I'll show you how to get access to the dashboard. Why do I like what we're seeing for first 5 under? First thing that jumps out to me, Baltimore's offense against lefties, right? 184 average, WRC plus of 55, on base percentage 250. That's like a bad batting average, and their on base percentage is at 259, OPS 512, ISO 069, slugging 253. They are hitting a decent amount of fly balls, which isn't usually indicative of me looking for a first 5 under, but look at the ISO, look at the slugging, any sort of power-related numbers means they're not hitting these balls all too hard, and you do have Mitchell Parker, who has a 1.52 ground ball to fly ball ratio this season, which I love to see. He's going to throw a lot of fastballs. Doesn't look like that's all the best pitch for them to hit either. Sure, the splitter, the curve, I guess you could say the slider, they all hit fairly well. Not necessarily the curve, but ultimately I do think that this is a good spot for Mitchell Parker against a Baltimore team that struggles against the left hand. On the other side of things, the one thing that I'm really noting, there's no other team in the league right now that's hitting more ground balls than Washington, and Dean Kramer actually has a positive, if you want the ground balls, right, a positive 1.1 ground ball to fly ball rate. So I think that's a fair matchup for him, and we're getting this at a decent number because these bullpens are bad, and even the pitchers to some degree don't carry much weight with their names. This is a line that we can get in the first 5 at 5.5. So 5.5, I really do like here. We can have a 3-2 game through the first 5 and still catch the first 5 under. So yeah, I'm all over this one. The last time we took one of these high line first 5 unders, it blew up in our face. So I think it was Texas and the Angels maybe? But either way, I do think there's a lot of factors, both offensively and pitching, that kind of line up really well for a first 5 under here. So yeah, I expect this to be a final play. If you guys want access to that dashboard over on GuyBostonSports.com, right here, top of your screen, you'll see the members section. You can click that or hover over it and then click the MLB dashboard. If you're already logged in, it'll take you right to the dashboard you just saw, what we make every single day. You can open it up. We'll zoom in a little bit so you guys could see it. Once we can zoom in a little bit, but yeah, you get each and every game broken out with a bunch of what I would deem key stats just by breaking down the game here in a visual format, right? Green's good, red is bad. You have pitching data, you have bullpen data, pitch mix, meaning what pitches do these pitchers throw, chase rate, swing and miss rate. You also have batting versus that hand on the road, batting against certain pitches, and then even some player data in terms of average versus that hand, OPS versus that hand, and then per fastball, cutter, splitter, all of the pitches that we can see as well. Again, each and every game here, guys. If you do want to check it out, that is going to be over on GuyBostonSports.com. This is like a compilation of, I would say, about 8 different sites that we use to get some of these data points in here. Some of it's automated. A lot I have to do manual each and every morning, but this is well worth it if you do not have a login, right? So we just showed you how it would look if you did have access. Say you're coming here for the first time, you head over to the members area. It's going to say, hold up, membership required. We have a couple different membership levels. If you're interested in both NBA and MLB, you're going to want to pick the All Sports dashboard. If you just want the MLB, because that's all you're interested in, $49.99 per month. And if you lock in at this price and you keep your subscription active and whatnot, even if we raise the price next season or something like that, you are locked in at the price that you have as of right now. So yeah, go ahead and check it out, guys. That's GuyBossSports.com. Consider getting access to the dashboard by becoming a site member. It's different than a YouTube membership. Site member. Go ahead, check it out. GuyBossSports.com. So in terms of a side in this game, that is the one that I'm having a tough time taking. I would say Mitchell Parker against the lefty is the biggest like wow factor of this, because this Baltimore offense has really struggled against lefties. I also would say at some point, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, at some point this Baltimore offense is going to turn it around. Like, this is supposedly one of the better offenses heading into the season, right? And now they've started to look a lot better against righties. Lefties they're still absolutely struggling with, but you know what I mean? At some point, I do think that we're going to see some guys start to turn some things around, but maybe not so much today. Maybe not so much against Mitchell Parker. So yeah, I'm going to look at a couple different player props. We have Mateo of the Orioles here. I like his under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. This is a guy that's batting .059 on the season. He's batting a little bit better against lefties. He's one of the sole guys at, his batting average is .091, batting ninth here, but his OPS against lefties, 273. Like, I think that this could be a fair spot. And yes, you're paying a little bit of juice at -150, but still, like, I think that that's fairly worth it. He is going to see the fastball. He hits well. But then if you look at the splitter, the curve, or the slider, which we'll see from Mitchell Parker as well, he should not be hitting it all that well. So I think that Mateo could be a decent spot for an under here. Same thing with Loreno, also on the Orioles here. He's batting .200 on the season, but .077 against lefties. The fastball he hits well, the splitter not so much, the curve not so much. The slider okay, but slider we're only going to see 12% of the time from Mitchell Parker. And then the last one, guy that we've cashed with before, and maybe he's starting to heat up, so this is a little dicey, but we're going to look at Jordan Westburg here, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs as well. Again, he's one of the guys that does hit lefties better, but the pitch mix. He doesn't hit the fastball well, and he doesn't hit the splitter well. Those make up nearly 70% of the pitches we'll see from Mitchell Parker. So 3 player props. I would say first 5 under is definitely my favorite in this one. Washington's side would be probably next, and then these player props, if I had to rank them. All right, Mets taking on the Phillies. Yesterday, Mets win this one 5-4, and I'll tell you, this Mets team is starting to get things going, right? Last 5 games, they've taken W's, 4, 5, 3, 7, and 5 runs scored. Maybe things are starting to turn around. Now, I really did, kind of went into this one as we broke it down and researched it. Tried to make a case for the Mets because I love the fact that they're going up against, Chris Sanchez, who's on the road, which is like an entirely different pitch in the last couple of years than when he's at home in Philadelphia, and you're getting plus money behind the Mets. I couldn't get there. I really ended up not being able to get there. Griffin Canning, I would say, is due for some regression, and I'm not saying he's pitching lights out, but let's be honest, the dude's been pitching really well, especially at home this year, and he only has the 2 home starts, but in both of those, 10 innings pitched through the 2 of them, just 2 earned runs, I think it's like 7 hits, and he's averaging like, I think 15 to 17, maybe it's like 17 point something pitches per inning. I think that this dude is due to have some runs come in on him. If you look at his stats against this Phillies roster, they're not all that great, small sample size, but on the flip side, you have Sanchez, who, yes, again, he's on the road. That's a little bit worrisome for me, but 111 plate appearances against this current Mets roster. 29% K rate, 7% walk rate, an average against of 220. It just jumps to a 228 in terms of expected batting average against. A WOBA of 292, jumps to just a 308 expected WOBA against, and an X slugging here of 404. He's also has an average launch angle, just for the record, because I think that this is important. I don't expect many big plays out of big at-bats or anything like that. He has an average launch angle of, let's see, we just had it up, 3.4%. So this guy's keeping the ball on the ground as well. I like the Phillies in this spot. I kind of like the idea of a first 5 under as well. Let me see what the odds we can get for that, because we didn't have that up. The Phillies are definitely something I'm considering. They've lost a couple straight games, and I could see them being able to, or maybe potentially bouncing back here in this one. But yeah, under 4.5 right now for -114. You can even go under 5 if you really wanted to, pay a little juice at -150 to get there. Sanchez so far this season, 2-2 to his first 5 unders, but his only road start, he did hit the under in the first 5. And then in terms of Griffin Canning, this year he's looked pretty good, I guess, but one of the games the Mets ended up scoring a bunch of runs, so it's like they kind of screwed him in the first 5, but he looked okay through his starts, you know what I mean? So yeah, first 500 in the Phillies, 2 spots that I would consider here in terms of a side and a total. When we take a peek at this from a player prop perspective, we've cashed this guy multiple times, and I just like the matchup here against Chris Sanchez with his pitch mix. Luis Torrens here, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Another under. I know as the season gets longer and you know, we get deeper into it, we'll start mixing it up. But yes, when I'm looking player props, because of our hit rate so far, we are prioritizing hits, runs, and RBIs and looking at the under for guys that are in bad matchups. It's what it is right now, guys. I know I'm going to get a friggin' shirt that says first 5 under the under king or something like that. King of the unders. King of the unders I like. All right, Atlanta taking on St. Louis. We have Dylan Lee starting for the Braves, who has appeared in 9 games so far this year. Not normally a starter, though, right? So it'll be interesting to see how many innings he goes. Maybe they're just looking for him to kind of start things off. He's going up against Andre Payante here, which I think that he's looked okay. I've seen some mixed opinions about him so far this season, and I would say, yeah, he's been pitching fairly well. I don't want to take anything away from him. Some of his numbers don't look all that phenomenal, but I've watched a decent amount of him. He's going to put balls in the ground. He's also going to pitch deep into games, and it's kind of what you're looking for in some of these pitchers, right? So, yeah, I would say that there's a pitching advantage on the St. Louis side of things. He throws a ton of fastballs, though they're not the biggest of heaters. He keeps them on the ground. In Atlanta, not exactly the best fastball hitting team, so without knowing really the pitching strategy behind the Braves here, I think I'm going to lean towards St. Louis. This was a close game yesterday. Actually, we have this up 7-6, in which it looked like this was going to be a win for St. Louis. Then the Braves scored 5 runs, and it's like, oh boy, they ended up going up, right? And then St. Louis in the top of the 9th battled back to almost win that one. So I think that they can hang in there. I think that they can hit well. For what it's worth, Dylan Lee is a lefty. They've been hitting everybody pretty well, but they hit lefties pretty well so far this season. So yeah, I don't think this is a terrible spot for them. But again, I would be remiss to act like it's not a question mark as to what this Atlanta team's doing with their pitching. In terms of where we go from a total perspective, I would lean towards an over for St. Louis, team total, or just a full game over. Because what if Payante does continue to allow, like I said, he's getting the ball on the ground, pitching to contact and whatnot, but again, he's got a couple starts so far this season where he's allowed a decent amount of runs. I think it was start with 3 earned runs, 4 earned runs, but that's through 5 innings pitched, 6 innings pitched. So again, it's not bad. Kind of surface level looks bad, but even if he allows 3 earned runs, I think that this is a spot where St. Louis can put in a few runs themselves. The bullpens maybe a couple more. Slight lean to the over. All right, we can go through this one pretty quick. We have Bubic on the mound going up against, I believe it was Feltner for Colorado. Colorado stinks. We know that. Bubic, honestly, started the season looking really, really good. He's come back down to earth for sure. I would still say that that's the side that I'd look at in terms of potential, maybe throw into a money line parlay, but I really don't think either one of these offenses is all that phenomenal, and we kind of know that now. You do have Feltner, who throws a ton of pitches that do get hit, into the ground, so ground balls good for unders. You have Chris Bubic, who's been, producing a lot of ground balls this season, so maybe we just look at the under 8.5 and get out of town here. This is such a volatile, again, sometimes when you stay away from games like this or matchups like this, it feels like a net win because you didn't just play with fire, right? I'd like to think at least we go in with some thought process and some sort of edge, even if it's my dumb brain thinking it's an edge. But when you do have two teams that are just absolutely volatile like this, it's tough because Kansas City's offense has obviously not been all that great, right? But what's stopping them from just going off against Felter? You know what I mean? That wouldn't shock me if you're they got to the Rockies. It's yeah, no kidding, right? So I think it's under or nothing in this game, and most likely nothing if I'm being honest. There's a full slate on the board today. This probably isn't one that we're diving into too much. All right, Chicago Cubs taking on the Dodgers. We have May on the mound for the Dodgers and Shota Imanaga on the mound for the Cubs, who has just that one kind of blemish of a start on the season. Other than that, the dude has been looking really good, right? And his numbers, 2.2 ERA, 0.99 whip, average against of 175 so far this year. He's been looking pretty good. And what have I said about this Dodgers team all year long? Not that I'm always going to fade them against lefties, but that's the time to consider it. Shota Imanaga is a lefty, as we know, and he's got some decent numbers here against this Dodgers roster. 55 plate appearances against. He's got a batting average against of 176, an expected batting average against here of 238, an expected WOBA of 319, so not all that poor, right? And in terms of that game that he pitched when they were overseas, 4 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, 4 walks though, but no hits either. So it's like he pitched pretty well against them. And that was before we knew the Dodgers may struggle against lefties. I've said all along, at some point, this Dodgers team will figure it out. Like, I don't think that they're going to be bad against lefties all, year. But it's still kind of early, and they're also, especially using the dashboard here, you can see Imanaga's going to throw a bunch of fastballs. It's like the one pitch that they're struggling against. So you have the pitch they're struggling against. You have the hand that they're struggling against. And even look at this. They're batting just 200 in terms of, against lefties batting averages here, 77 WRC plus. Like, none of these numbers are good. Some of the power numbers may be good, but, we lost our spot here. Some of those power numbers fairly good, but ultimately, I don't think that this is a good spot for them. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of Imanaga. Now, when he's been at home this year, it's kind of been a different story. Here we have his home starts right here. So Chicago, and Chicago. The first one pretty good. His one start here that kind of threw off all the numbers is right here against Texas. So I think that is worth noting, that because of that, his home starts don't look all that great, but it's really just 1 out of 3. So yeah, all that to say that I think this could be a spot to consider the Cubs on the money line. I mean, from a bullpen perspective, I would say that, you probably want to get out of here with just backing Imanaga before having to bring in the Dodgers bullpen. Both these bullpens should be fresh, and the bullpen for the Dodgers is far better than the Cubs. So maybe Cubs first 5. They are at home, kind of like that spot for them in terms of winning this year at home. This is a full game, not first 5, but 2/3 of the game, 66.7% of the games they've won at home this year. So I'd consider the Cubs, but it is a consideration because, again, not just like when I say they're up against a lefty, that's the time that you can consider fading the Dodgers, I would say. But full season, at some point, they will turn things around. In terms of a total, I'll sound the psycho alert alarm. I kind of like the under in this one. I think that this is a spot in which, we did talk about how Shota can kind of suppress this Dodgers offense, but what if Dustin May, who we haven't even mentioned, goes out there and just continues to do what he's been doing? The dude has a 1.06 ERA so far this year, 0.76 whip, a FIP of 2.4, an expected FIP of 3.3. That's still fairly good. An average against of 119. And he's a righty. The Cubs have hit lefties a little bit better than righties. They're still really good against righties, don't get me wrong, but I think that kind of adds to it. So yeah, maybe a potential look at an under. Is that crazy? Maybe it is. I sounded the psycho alert alarm. Minnesota taking on Chicago. We have Bailey Ober, who's looked okay at home this year, going up against Davis Martin. I want to take a peek at an under, but I have a feeling that this is a Minnesota team that could kind of put up a respectable number here against Martin, a guy that we really don't want to have too much trust in. And Bailey Ober, at some point, I guess, to the unders point, I do think that he will click. He's had a couple good starts so far this season. His numbers against this White Sox team are pretty good in 70 plate appearances against. So this could also be a spot in which we say, okay, you know what? Let's play this like we played Garrett Crochet the other day. Not saying Ober and Garrett Crochet are similar, but if we can look at, and let's find that actually, if we can get Chicago team total under, 4.5 under something, that might be a spot in which we could consider. So right now, Chicago under 4.5. Oh boy, you're paying under 3.5 would be what it has to be. They've hit that in 8 of their last 10. Maybe that's what we take a peek at. That's probably how I'd play this. The odds on the Minnesota side of things are way too crazy. So kind of beating around the bush to get there. Chicago team total under, which I guess kind of involves what we'd see from a total perspective as well, right? That's kind of like a hybrid approach to that. I do have a player prop that I'm considering here, Andrew Vaughn and Andrew Benintendi, 2 guys for their under hits, runs, and RBIs. We'll start with Andrew Vaughn. Now, he had a good game yesterday against the Red Sox. He had a home run, so obviously he kind of swept the board with that, hits, runs, and RBIs. But he is going up against a right-handed pitcher, batting just 161 against righties this year. Does hit the fastball, but the slider, changeup, curveball, sinker could be good pitches that we can look at there. Now, Andrew Benintendi also looked okay against the Red Sox. He hit a home run, but he also hasn't had the best of season. If we look at this under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs on the season, he's hit under in 64% of games. And again, I like the pitch mix for him going up against the fastball, slider, changeup. So 2 unders there, but I think Chicago team total under could be the thing that we look at in this one. If, and it's a big if, we do roll with something. All right, Houston taking on Toronto. Blanco on the mound for Houston, going up against Bassett here for this Toronto team. two pitchers that honestly don't have the worst of numbers against their opponent. Now, Bassett has had some struggle games, but recently hasn't looked all that bad, especially this season, right? He's boasting an ERA here of .77, so pretty damn good. He throws a lot of sinkers. That's not a good pitch for Houston, and Houston's been struggling against righties to start the year. So I think this one's starting to shape up as a potential under for me, but I'll also throw in the fact that Blanco hasn't been all that great, right? And Toronto's Chris Bassett, like at some point, I think this guy's due for a little regression. And this was an under game yesterday, but Houston ended up scoring 7 runs in that one. So even 1 run from the Toronto side of things, and they were all 5th inning on, even 1 run from the Toronto side of things would have made this thing go over. Now we have what I would consider 2 worst pitchers on the mound, but this has only moved a half of a run. So keep that in mind. I'm going to lean under. I'm also going to lean towards Toronto because I think that their offense was log jammed yesterday and is due to kind of get back on track. But this is a tricky one. This might be, even though this is a good matchup, right? Like good, entertaining, probably baseball to watch. This is kind of like Kansas City and Colorado in the sense that it kind of seems like it's dicey. Like I think if you can make an argument of it going both ways, it makes it tough to want to solidify something, right? So I'll lean Toronto and the under, but both of those are kind of like a razor thin margin in my brain. All right, I can be quick for this one. Jose Soriano on the mound for the Angels going up against Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter is not a good pitcher. We get that. He is coming off of a decent start, and he's going up against this Angels team that isn't the best against lefties, and honestly, their offense is starting to taper off a little bit. I would say it's Pittsburgh or nothing in this one for me. Why? Well, I don't love Jose Soriano, and the fact that we are looking at a minus 190 price tag for the Angels here, that just says no for me, okay? We are seeing Pittsburgh with a day off. The Angels got the day off as well. Now they're at home. Pittsburgh have to go from Pittsburgh after being at home for like 7 straight games to LA. I get that, but this is just, I cannot make an argument for nearly minus 200 odds for Jose Soriano. Even though he has looked good this year, I'm still waiting for some regression from him. Pittsburgh or nothing for me in this one, and that's honestly all we have. I would also lean maybe slightly towards the under because we have two bad hitting teams here, but the bullpens I don't fully trust. Pittsburgh's bullpens do rank kind of well in terms of league-wide numbers. Angels have a bad bullpen. You're playing with fire there if you like something like that. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards the under, maybe first 5 under, but I still don't like either of the pitchers. So Pittsburgh or nothing for me in this one, and it's most likely nothing. Hate to do it to you guys, but most likely nothing. Arizona taking on Tampa Bay, and we're really starting to see Tampa Bay's offense kind of fade a little bit now against lefties. That is what's really happening. I mean, 0 runs against Newcomb, 0 runs against Rodon, 0 runs against Fried. So I get it. Brandon Pfaadt's on the mound here against them today. He is a righty, so that's maybe a different sort of factor. But Zach Littell's on the mound for this Tampa Bay team, and I think Arizona should be able to get to him, especially being at home. He throws a ton of sliders. You have Perdomo. You have like 7 guys in this lineup that like to hit the slider really well. Bullpen's kind of comparable. You are paying a decent premium, right? Nearly minus 160. I think it's minus 155 or minus 158 on FanDuel right now, but I still think this could be a decent, Arizona look. I am, I guess, some degree biased because Arizona has been a team that we've rolled with plenty this year and even last year, but ultimately, they had the day off. They're at home here. They did have to travel, so it's not like Tampa Bay has to travel to Arizona, but Arizona doesn't. They both do travel, but here in a game 1 of a series, and I think that this is a better offense in Arizona than Tampa Bay, even though they're going up against a righty. I think it's a good spot for them. In terms of the total, Arizona team total over could also be a way that we look, and that way we don't have to worry about, Brandon Pfaadt or Tampa Bay against a righty, right? If we just want to say, okay, Arizona, go get your 4 runs, we could do that. So I'll lean Arizona team total over. I think with the 9 total, it might be 4.5 for plus money. I'd consider that. I don't love it as much as if we can even pay juice for a 3.5, though. I think they could score 4 runs today. Easily, right? Which is like what they do a ton of the time. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I guess I would still lean over because Tampa Bay does hit righties well. There is enough factors there that, yes, these really bad outings are against lefties. Brandon Pfaadt's not a lefty, so fair enough. I'm going to lean Arizona in the over, but I'd probably say Arizona in Arizona team total over before getting to the full game over. All right, San Francisco taking on Milwaukee. I feel like I'm missing something here. We did see a win for San Francisco yesterday. They won 5-2, right? Quinn Priester didn't look all that great. Now we have Jose Quintana on the mound, who has looked really good this year. He has a under 1 ERA. He has an under, I think it's 0.57 whip on the road. But he's looked really good. This is a San Fran team that obviously is a good team, but Jordan Hicks hasn't looked all that great. Yeah, we're getting Milwaukee for a plus number, and Quintana's a lefty. That's the side that San Francisco struggles against a little bit more, right? So this is an interesting one to me. I almost want to say that this is a first 5 under because I also don't see, Milwaukee's offense absolutely cruising today. So I think first 5 under and Milwaukee would be what I ultimately look at here. I don't want to get the bullpens involved because even though San Francisco looks like a good bullpen so far, I'm curious to see if that lasts season long. And Milwaukee's bullpen on the other side of things, really nothing that I want to play with too much, especially just given the fact that their ERA ranks in the bottom 5 of the league. Even just in general, I would say that they have some names in there that, you throw him in and all of a sudden he could just give up a bunch of runs himself. So they're a little taxed as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't really want to get involved with the bullpen. So first 5 would be what I look at, but am I missing something? Like San Francisco, it's almost like the numbers are telling us that they're about to go off today. You know what I mean? So yeah, I maybe I am, but I think that this is a fair spot. Quintana's 2 for 2 in terms of his starts from a first 5 under perspective. And then in terms of do we have that up? Yeah, Jordan Hicks has kind of struggled this year, but his road start, it wasn't his problem that they went over. It was the offense's problem, right? Which if Quintana kind of does his job today, maybe we could be looking at an under again. So yeah, as weird as it is, that's kind of where I'm going. First 5 under and Milwaukee, I guess, because I think that Milwaukee for plus money. Now, if the odds were flipped, I'd probably just flip and say, yeah, I mean, this is probably a San Francisco spot. I think these teams are too even for this to be that juiced on the San Francisco side of things. All right, last game of the slate, we got the A's with Beto on the mound taking on Texas's Patrick Corbin. Athletics hit lefties really well. They don't hit the slider that well. They do hit the cutter really well. And those are the 2 main pitches that we're going to see. I almost want to get to Patrick Corbin here. I mean, he's looked okay to start the year, right? But it's like every time you say Patrick Corbin, it's almost like you got to chuckle because this dude must be one of the most hated on pitchers in the league. Beto on the other side of things has looked really, really good this year, so it's tough to say that there's any advantage. I will say Texas has the better bullpen, so if you like the plus money, you're playing the full game because maybe Texas can get to them, but I mentioned how the A's hit the lefties better. Texas hits righties worse. This is probably and ultimately an A's spot, but just note that I tried to get to Texas. I tried to throw a bone to Patrick Corbin there. In terms of the total, I think that this is far too high. If you're expecting 6 runs out of the A's, then sure, but I don't see where you're seeing Texas carrying their weight for an over like this, maybe just when it gets to the bullpen. But let's not forget, even though I mentioned how this is a bad bullpen for the A's, it's not like the Texas Rangers have a great, their bats aren't great right now, right? Seager's doing his job. I guess you could say Young has a decent average, but everyone else against righties is kind of struggling so far this year. Simeon might as well retire at this point. So yeah, I think 10's a little bit too high, a little bit too crazy. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really do appreciate it. We'll catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.